Shalom. Welcome to the 24th annual Miami Jewish Film Festival, one of the largest and oldest Jewish cultural arts events. We want to thank all of our members, sponsors, community partners, and volunteers, and all of you film lovers, and especially our presenting sponsors, the Center for the Advancement of Jewish Education, SAGE, and the Greater Miami Jewish Federation for their continued support throughout all these years. My name is Rabbi Rigoberto, also known as Manny Viñas. I am a teacher at the SAGE Adult Learning Programs of the Melton and Moore programs. This semester, I'm teaching the course about the creation of the Ketubah. I have many years as a professor, and also especially in reference to the movie that we were all privileged to see, the Space Torah movie. I should mention that I am also an ordained Torah scribe. And so it was especially moving for me to see this wonderful movie. And I'm very, very pleased to be moderating our virtual conversation. I'm in the company of director Rob Cooper and also executive producer Rachel Raz from the movie Space Torah, which is premiering at this year's festival. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you to the two of you for all of the time that you put in to create this wonderful movie. I was very, very moved by it, and I'm very pleased to be in your company and to be able to ask you a couple of questions regarding how much I enjoyed it. Let me give you an opportunity to introduce yourselves, and I could begin with Rob, if you don't mind.
Well, since you called on me, I think we should begin with Raquel. But about 4 years ago, Raquel came to our film production company. We make documentaries and personal histories, and asked us if we wanted to make a film with her. And I said, great. And she said, well, I've never made a film before and I don't have any money, but I've got a great story. and every single person that I've talked to in these past 4 years, when I say there's an astronaut that took Torah into space and read from Bereshit while soaring through the firmament, everybody goes, wow. And people have pitched in, and Raquel just has this way of inspiring people to do things. So that's what got me involved in it. And it's been a mitzvah. It's just been a remarkable experience. And Raquel could tell you more. I don't know if I've met a lot of famous folks in 40 years of doing production work. I've never met any more accomplished person than Jeff Hoffman. He's just a remarkable person, and it was an honor to be entrusted with his story.
Thank you so much. Rachel, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what motivated you to search out Rob and to create this wonderful work?
So 5 years ago, a colleague of mine at work, at that time I worked at Hebrew College in the Boston area, told me that a Jewish astronaut is coming to our college to talk. And I said, wow, I never met an astronaut, let alone a Jewish astronaut. So let's go and hear, it sounds interesting, fascinating. So I came without really knowing anything about this Jewish astronaut, Jeff Hoffman, without any expectation also. I'm also an Israeli, so the only astronaut that I really knew and was fascinated by his story was the Israeli astronaut Ilan Ramon. And so I came there with no preparation, and then this lovely guy standing and talking about his 5 space missions and fixing the Hubble telescope, being on this team that fixed the Hubble telescope, but then kind of like weaving in that the first flight, it was during Passover, and he wanted to take matzot with him. And of course, what happened to matzah? We know all the crumbs, and he didn't get the okay to take it to space because crumbs are floating and get into all of the machines. And then he kept very simply to say that he took with him on each one of his 5 space missions a mezuzah. And he put it where he slept, and he showed us a picture of where he slept and where he put the mezuzah with Velcro. And then on his 4th flight, it was Hanukkah. And then on top of all of this, he said, and on my 5th flight, I took a Torah. And he also showed us about 5-6 minutes long movie, like the type of homemade movie that the other astronaut, the Swiss astronaut, took of him unfolding the Torah, reading from the Torah, and he explaining so beautifully. And when I was sitting in this lecture, so two things came to my mind. First of all, wow, how come I don't know about it? You know, this is amazing, amazing story, American story, Jewish story. How come we don't know about this astronaut? And the second thing that came into mind, I'm an educator. So how much I want to use this story to share with educators, with children, and I want to use it, the story. So this is the inspiration. I was there. It's also a positive story. So we need positive story, something with good beginning, middle, and end, with just a good story that can be uplifting. So I reached out to Jeff in the end of the lecture, and I asked him, where can I get this original footage, because I knew that I want to use it. And he said, it's not available. And I said to him, what do you mean it's not available? He said, it's on my computer. And I said, this is 20 years after.
Wow.
He took the Torah in 1996. Actually, this March, it will be 25 years. In a couple of weeks, we're going to celebrate 25 years to this occasion. And he said, no, it's on my computer. And for me, it was fascinating. And I said to him, after 20 years, I said, yeah, I was busy. So he's busy. And so I asked him if he's open to make a documentary film. And as Rob shared, I never did a documentary film in my life, but I knew that this story must get out to the world and be preserved and shared. And I started doing homework, asking people, how do you make a film? Who know how to make a film? So I'm very thankful that this investigation led me to Rob and Verissimo Production. And then we start working together from the first meeting. As Rob mentioned, he loved the idea and he became committed to it. And we've been through this journey for about 4.5 years now.
Well, the partnership is absolutely fantastic. First, but we can see by the product of what you've created, but also a teacher is very much a storyteller, and a producer is very much a storyteller. So either one of you could just tell us a little bit about how you went about collecting the story and organizing it. I was commenting to Rob earlier that we all love a wonderful story. I'm also a professor, I'm also a teacher, and to see the way that you created the order of the story and the way that it flows in such a moving and entertaining and uplifting way was really a tremendous art to see. And maybe you could share with us a little bit about how you felt inspired and how you collect all of that, and tell us a little bit about what you do.
I'm going to jump in and give Rachel a little shout out here because, what is an executive producer? In this case, the executive producer was the visionary who had the idea for the story, and she had some really firmly held thoughts about the story. She was wanting very much to look at some of Jeff's childhood experiences and build a story on where he came from. And it just so happens that Verissimo Productions, I've got to get a plug in here, our production company, we do historical documentaries and we also do personal histories. So we had 20 years experience of doing people's life stories. So when Rachel said, I want to meet Jeff as a boy, in so many words, and she really stressed that, and that was great. When we found out, he saw Sputnik. It was the first object flying through space, in 1957 or whatever. And the beauty of doing that was when he talked about the first time he saw the rings of Saturn through the telescope his dad got, he was just as excited telling us about it, at age 76 or whatever, as he was when he did it. So I just wanted to say Rachel gave us a sense of, basic orientation, and here's what I think might be important. And then she left us free to do it with input, but without, we always felt, and my philosophy about a film has always been, it's in there. It's like what is it? sculpture, the African sculpture that's in the tree. If you get rid of everything that's not the sculpture, you've got, the lion or whatever. And so she just had a tremendous amount of confidence in us, and that sort of enabled us to find what the through line of the story was. And finally, in passing, Raquel mentioned this is one of 4 people that fixed the Hubble telescope. So if he's already a hero before he ever, took the Torah. He's really a significant fellow. Oh, and by the way, 5 days it took to fix the Hubble telescope, and then it was Hanukkah. And so the elements were just, mind blowing that the way they all lined up. Raquel, your take?
So there's telling the story. There are several things when I saw the original footage that immediately in that first meeting when I met Jeff really struck me that I want to make sure that it will be included in the film. Like one of them when he spoke about his congregant making the little pouch for the Torah, Nancy Pikes. So for me, it was like the power of community. And I told Rob, I want to make sure that we're including the importance of community. The other thing, Jeff said that it wasn't his idea to take the Jewish object. It was the idea of the rabbi. So for me, again, as an educator, I said, I want to make sure that we have this, that the rabbi said it because to show the role of the spiritual leader in this journey. And then when I asked Jeff in his office, in one of our first initial meeting, if he can tell us about his childhood experience, without even thinking, he spoke about his father and going to the planetarium and going to the open field. And for me, it was like, I wanted the message for parents. I said to Rob, I want to make sure to include that. And another important thing that was very important for me, and I kind of shared with Rob some of these significant things that were very important for me that will be part of the film. When I asked him if there was any educator that influenced him, and again, without any hesitation, he said my 3rd grade teacher.
Wow.
And it wasn't a science teacher. It was a teacher that really saw him as an individual, right. and so what really he cared about. And she brought him the book. It wasn't a book, in the class or anything. And then she actually asked him to share what he learned with his fellow kids in the classroom. So for me, these are some things that are so important that I wanted to make sure that we put in. And the last one, which is a universal message, when Jeff spoke in the original footage, we are a traveler and we take with us our cultures and tradition. I want everyone, Jews and non-Jews, it doesn't matter if you're Muslim or Buddhist or Christians or atheist or anything. What is your culture? What are you taking with you? And how you can combine it with your own professional life and bring it together. So these are like some of the building blocks that when I met with Rob over time and we uncovered some of them, we didn't know all of them from the first meeting with Jeff, I said to Rob, they must be in. And Jeff played with all of the, with all of them and wove it so beautifully, I have to say, yeah.
Sure, go ahead, Rabbi.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say one little fillip about this. You've got to work really, really hard and really, really long hours to make a documentary, and you've also got to have a certain amount of luck. In a historical documentary, there's always a question of, okay, great, how are we going to illustrate his 3rd grade teacher? We don't have the budget to, do a recreation of a classroom. We don't have a picture of her. Well, it just so happens that she gave him this book, Our Starland. And it's very 1950s kind of book. So we had that to illustrate, and we actually got the son of a friend of ours to be the hand, the 12-year-old hand turning the page. So we were just very lucky with those parts of the story.
Nicely done. I think you intuited the next question I was going to ask, Rob, is we know that Rachel, this is your first movie. Hopefully you'll do many more because you're a wonderful, it's very thoughtful to think that a child, to show somebody where a child's interest, a parent identifies the interest, a teacher identifies the interest, and then they feed that interest, and how wonderfully the seeds are planted and it turns into a beautiful flower of success, an American hero, a Jewish hero. what a wonderful lesson. But I know it's your first movie, but Rob, this is not your first movie. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Uh, sure. I mean, how long you got? I'll try to be succinct. I realized I wanted to make films. Yeah, when I was in my 20s, and I'll just hit the high spots. I was able to get a job. I grew up in Memphis. I got a job at the PBS station in Mississippi. Made a film with B.B. King about the Delta Blues in 1978. And PBS wasn't making that great a living. I came up here. I worked for WBZ TV. I did corporate for 20 years. 1999, simultaneously, the Zamir Chorale of Boston was making a trip to Eastern Europe and wanted a film made. And one of the choral members was our son's sculpture teacher. And we ended up going to Eastern Europe for 2 weeks, and that ended up on PBS. And simultaneously, my mom's best friend was the president of the Jewish Historical Society of Memphis, and my wife and I, who should be here, the better half, Pam, made our first film together in 1999, and it happened to be a Jewish subject. And my family goes back 5 generations, believe it or not, on my grandmother's side, and
Southern Jews.
So, yeah, Southern Jews. In fact, we just presented at our temple, Adult Ed, the past 2 Sundays, about my family from Natchez and Memphis. And over the past 20 years, these Jewish subjects just keep coming at us, and it's just been we've done. We do a broadcast documentary about every 3 or 4 years. The last significant one was not Jewish. It was about the political boss of Memphis in the 20th century. But we recently presented at an adult ed Holocaust triumphers, we called it, not just survivors. There's a woman who sang in the Zamir Chorale who had a remarkable story. The artist Samuel Bach, who's painted of his experiences in the Vilna Ghetto. And also, this amazing man in Memphis who at age 13 hid out in the woods with 49 other guys for 18 months, at which point there were 11 of them left when they were living. But basically, I haven't sought Jewish projects, but they keep seeming to find me. And it's really reinforced my own Judaism. It's like someone is speaking to me, and it took 20 years, but I'm listening. So I've become more observant consequently.
So you're educating and you're being educated. It's the greatest flow. It's the greatest adventure in life.
That's a great definition of filmmaking, right there.
Right.
That's
yeah. I was moved by many of the lines that appear in the movie. I want to share with you that because I mentioned that I'm a scribe, as I saw that small Torah, I realized that often small Torahs are made either for rebbes, for like Hasidic rebbes in the older days, and today most of the small Torahs are made for Shiva homes. When there is a Shiva, we bring a small Torah and we do the minyan there, and we read the Torah, those small little Torahs, because they travel well from place to place. When Jeff Hoffman says that the Torah is something that we take with us into the future, I was very moved by that, because obviously it's a way of tying us to the past and all of our memories. But in the same way, the ultimate statement is this idea of going into space and traveling through space. And he's fixing the Hubble telescope, and the Hubble telescope is looking into the past from the present. I just wanted to invite you, if you wanted to share a couple of thoughts regarding that.
The same way it moved you, it also moved me, because I saw this phrase at the original footage that Jeff shared, And it resonated with me very, very much. And I also wanted to send it as a message to the world, to young students, college students, to think about, first of all, to see it as a pride in our tradition, to remind them that there is lots of wonderful values within it. Um, and, and even if they don't think so yet, maybe if to think that if somebody like Jeff chose to take it with him, and if they respect him as an astronaut, as somebody that's doing the most advanced thing in the world, to go and investigate why, what's in it. It's so relevant for us today, even when we are going to Mars. And today is actually when we're recording this. Everybody in the world, millions of people looking to see the landing
Right.
on Mars. The thing that Jeff is actually involved with, because he's leading one of the experiment there.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Wow.
So for me, it's a very important message for everyone. This is such a, I also like Judaism is very much informed me. I'm a Jewish educator by profession. Judaism showed me many things in my life, and I see lots of pride in it. And I wanted to make sure that when we bring it together, to empower other people to think this way also.
Mm-hmm. He also made a statement that because the Torah is a Jewish holy object, that it blesses the space that it comes into. And I think anybody who comes into contact with the Torah knows that every Torah has a story. Every Torah, if it could speak, it would tell us tremendous stories. And it does. It tells us these tremendous stories, but there's something about the energy of it, that blessing of bringing it into space and having it as a blessing for the place that you're in. Maybe I could invite you to comment a little bit on that as well.
Oh, that's that's pretty profound question. I think that it's basically our faith that makes us who we are, and this case it happens to be a Jewish faith. But we as human beings, that's one thing I remember Jeff saying. We take our faith with us wherever we go, and it's been that way since time immemorial, and this is crossing a new frontier. So I guess my main takeaway would be that whatever extent our technology enables or evolves, and wherever it takes us, our closeness to our God is sort of indivisible. That's one is as essential as the other. And I thought the beauty of what Jeff did and what we tried to convey is the way he worked that together. Never falling down on his job as an astronaut, everything precise, and the symbolic nature that with his very sophisticated wrench out there in space for all of those hours, the little adjustments he made gave us these celestial images. And if I ever thought of what God might look like, if it were possible to look at what God might look like, it would be something like some of those images, which are God's creation.
Yeah.
But it was science, his science, that got us to him, but it was his understanding of Torah that gave it more meaning.
Yeah.
So, and I'm going to keep trying to get on my other device.
That's very, very moving. I really
Thank you.
want to thank you for that. That's beautiful.
Thank you for the question.
Beautifully said. Yeah. And
And
Rachel, do you want to add something? Yeah.
Yes, I can add to it. One of the things that Jeff shared with us, that astronaut can bring with them a certain volume of their personal object of choice. And in most cases, they bring with us some things to make them special. So if they bring a banner of their university, of scouts or other things, so they can come back and say, wow, this is very special because it was in space. But in the case of the Torah, it was different because he said Torah is already very special. So the idea of bringing her to space was to make space something more special. And I think that there was another astronaut before Jeff that was asked if when he went up, if he saw God, and he said, no, God wasn't there. So Jeff, his idea was, if we as human go and we bring God with us, or by our present, God is there. So I think it's a big message about what we are, what's our values, what are the things that we take with us. And that's why for me, like, I really look at Jeff as a pioneer Jew that in space, that over almost 20 years, tried different things and different things. And the highlight was to take the space Torah and bringing humanity and really think about what human life in outer space or in different community would look like.
Yeah, what a beautiful thing to say. This idea that wherever we go, we bring God with us is just absolutely a wonderful way of thinking about it, and remarking on the world in using a combination of our humanity, our experience as a human, and combining that with technological skill is just absolutely beautiful. And I also have to say, I can't help it, but I am a rabbi. I have to give a special shkoyach to Rabbi Osadki, who thought of this, and I think it's absolutely a remarkable and a wonderful idea, and it's very moving. And also, I'm still remarking on the wonderful comment that you made, Rachel, regarding the fact that we're so familiar with the story of Ilan Ramon that unfortunately did not work out, and that we often focus on tragedy and we don't necessarily pay as much attention to the success and all the blessings that are around us. And this is not only a successful event for the Jewish people, but it's really an American story, and it's really a human story. And so I have to tell you how deeply moving it really is to see your work together. And I have to say a shkoyach to the two of you as well. I really applaud you for your work.
I'm going to catch that and say I so appreciate your comments, Rabbi. From your perspective, especially, it means a great deal. And the other thing that I wanted to say about what I could spend several more hours talking about what I learned from Raquel and working on this film and what I learned from Jeff. But with the 5% I have left, I'm going to turn into a pumpkin. And I'm sorry, it's shorted out today of all days, and I can't get on my other devices. But the thing that this business that they do, it's sort of a day at the office for these guys. This is where they go to work. In the case of the Hubble telescope, where he went to work was a 40-foot deep total immersion pool for a year, 13 months or something. That's where he went to work every day. Went to work, put on his wetsuit, and it gets to a point where it's almost matter of fact because everything is so precise. I remember listening to the moon landing on a portable radio by a swimming pool, a voice coming from the moon, and how extraordinary. And then we kind of got used to it. They come, they go, but Jeff has taught me just how amazing it is for humans to venture that far. And he never took it for granted. And Raquel was alluding to earlier, right now, while we're talking about this, Jeff is very involved in the rover that's landing on Mars today, that launched a year ago, that he was all excited about. So he's kept his energy and his enthusiasm. He's made me appreciate what an extraordinary thing, as you say, Rabbi, for humankind.
Yeah.
To do this, and in Jeff's case, to be able to step back and think about the deeper meaning of all of it beyond all the extraordinary technology. So I think I'm gonna fade away now before I get truncated mid-sentence. Rabbi, thank you so much.
Thank you for your time, and thank you for your thoughtfulness, and thank you for your art, and thank you for everything that you put into this. It's really very much a testimony to all the wonderful things that we pray for, that we hope for. I'm going to give a formal thank you, but I also want to tell you that your crew was wonderful, and the camera work and the sound and all of the elements of it were absolutely fantastic.
And
Absolutely.
one of the most fantastic things was that they all worked for some lower percentage of what their normal rates would be. For we got a discount from anywhere from 20% to 40% because they so much believed in the
The labor of
project.
love.
Yeah, it just sort of came with it, and really appreciate the specificity of your comments also, Rabbi. It means so much more when we know you're really seeing the little stitches that we
It was wonderfully woven. Beautiful,
uh,
beautiful job.
I will leave very happy on that note before anybody says anything bad about me, at least while I'm on. You can tell them the truth now, Raquel, once I go. Thanks, Raquel.
Shalom, shalom. Rachel, I'll give you the opportunity. I asked Rob the same question before, and I think we can end with this if you're ready. But I do want to. I asked the same question to Rob, and that is, what do you hope somebody? What is the soft? What's the end? What do you hope somebody will walk away with, having seen this? I think you've pretty much said it, but give me a final thought.
So beside the fact that I wanted to be part of our narrative, historical narrative, and to make sure it's part of our collective memory in some way, I want to inspire people wherever they are. If these are children, to dream about anything that interests them. It can be space, it can be about being a baker, it's about being whatever they want, to follow up their dream and their interest and work very hard to get there. If this is parents watching it, I want them to think, how much time do they spend with the kids about things that they're passionate about? Yes, his father enjoyed space and he took him to the planetarium and to the open field, but whatever the parents are passionate, it can be music, it can be working in the garden, anything that you're passionate, spend time with your children and share with them your passion.
Beautiful.
If a teacher is seeing this film, I want the teacher to forget about the curriculum, but really look at the children and what they're interested in. And if somebody's interested in something, let them and nourish them and help them grow. If a
Beautiful.
rabbi is watching it,
I'm I'm so emotional about it. So beautiful.
and if a rabbi is watching it, or a priest, or any other spiritual leader, to think about how are you going to help your congregant or people in your community to nourish them on their life journey. They're not finishing their life journey when they finish their religious school or confirmation. This is a lifelong journey. And also a big message, be part of a community. Community is important. So wherever we are, if we don't have a community, be part of a community, choose a community. And one more thing for everyone, to be proud, and learn more about your culture, understand it more, take the things that are positive and good that can make you a better person and a better citizen, and make this world a better place. So I hope that everyone will go out with some uplifting message that, yes, this is Jeff's story, but it's not just Jeff's story. It's the American dream from his grandfather coming here in 1900, in the beginning of last century, and building themselves as American, is a Jew that over the years evolved and take with him his tradition, and just really to be proud and excited and think about positive things and how to make things happen.
Chazak Baruch, beautiful, beautiful. I'm listening to your advice, and I'm thinking to myself that you followed your own advice. You're contributing in an excellent way, and also the work of Rob in contributing in such a wonderful way to our growth. And I just want to thank you personally for giving me the opportunity to get to know you and to interview you and to see your wonderful work. Thank you for seeing the potential in the story, which is, I think, very, very important historical note and also inspirational note. So I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And on behalf of all of your viewers, all of those who have enjoyed the movie, all of those who are part of the Jewish Film Festival of Miami, I want to thank you on behalf of our entire community for your wonderful work, not only yours, but also Rob's and your entire committee, your entire group that worked on this. So I want to thank you. I want to give a thank you to Director Rob Cooper and to the executive producer, Rachel Raz, from the movie Space Torah for joining us. Once again, thank you to all of our members, sponsors, and community partners, all the volunteers, and all of you film lovers as well, and especially our presenting sponsors, the Center for the Advancement of Jewish Education, SAGE, and the Greater Miami Jewish Federation for their continued support throughout all these years. And thank you, our audience, for participating in the 24th Annual Miami Jewish Film Festival. Thank you on my own behalf, Rabbi Rigoberto Viñas, also from Miami, enjoying very much our conversation. And I wish you all a shalom and a lot of strength. And thank you. I look forward to more work from you. Shalom, shalom.